Today I will be demonstrating how to make homemade root beer. But first, let me tell you a little about the history of root beer. Originally, back in around the 1800s, they created root beer with a sassafras root and by adding yeast and sugar to create the carbonation process. But later on, scientists discovered in around the 1900s that the sassafras root actually had a cancer-causing chemical in it. So they created a new substance made of spices and herbs to create an artificial root beer extract flavoring. So now I'm going to take you through the few steps it takes to make homemade root beer at home. It's very simple and anybody can do it. So first off, let me tell you about the ingredients. It takes 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon of the yeast, 1 tablespoon of extract, 2 cups of sugar, and then enough water to fill this 1-gallon container. First, you start off by adding a little bit of warm water to this container. As you're adding it, make sure you don't fill it up too high because you want to leave room in the container. Once enough water has been added, make sure it is warm water, you then add the sugar to be dissolved. You stir this all the way until it's dissolved before you add any more of the other ingredients. It might take a few minutes because it's a lot of sugar. As you continue to keep stirring so that it will dissolve. After all the sugar has been dissolved, you will then add the yeast. And remember, it's 1/8 to 1/4. So first, let me measure this out. You add the yeast, and then you stir that in. Make sure you get the yeast that's stuck to the sides. Once the yeast has been dissolved, you'll bring the water to the 1-gallon container. And again, you add warm water. So as this fills, you will then put the extract after it's been filled. Okay, it's about the 1-gallon container. So now I will add the 1 tablespoon of extract. Make sure you pour slowly so that it doesn't all come out. Smells just like root beer. Now you will stir this all in together. Make sure again that you get the root beer extract that's been on the sides. Continue to stir. Once it's all been stirred together and everything's been dissolved, you can then start to add the root beer mixture to the glass bottles. You'll put a cylinder in here, a funnel, so that way it's easier to pour into the container. And you make sure you don't fill up the bottle all the way because you need to leave room for when the carbonation is occurring so that it doesn't explode whenever you pop the lid. And there's usually enough to make 2 bottles worth. I will now add it to the other bottle. Now that it's in the bottle, the fermentation process has begun. And it will continue to go on until you refrigerate it. Because whenever you refrigerate the yeast, it will die, and so that ends the fermentation process. And the carbon dioxide that's produced inside here actually creates the fizz that you get when you drink the root beer. Make sure to pour slowly so it doesn't splash out everywhere. Oops, a little too much. I pour back some into the bottle. As natural carbonation takes place, a slight yeast deposit will form at the bottom. And you want to make sure when you're pouring this that you don't get the yeast deposit in your drink, because you don't want to drink that. And then, after you've poured the root beer into the bottles, you want to store it in a cool, dark place for about a week so it has time to age and really fermiate. And once it's been stored for about a week, you can then refrigerate it so you can enjoy it in a nice cold glass. And remember, be careful when you open it, because it can create a loud pop with all the pressure that's built up inside these glass bottles. So enjoy your root beer.